Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the July AGE Open. We just saw one squeaker of a match, one John Amonto against Chris Iali on Prism. We have another one coming up that's going to be really interesting. But first, I have a new face next to me. This is Marcus Brown.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
How you doing, Marcus?
I'm doing okay.
Glad to have you here in the booth for what is going to be quite a match. Can you introduce it for us?
Yeah, we've got an interesting matchup here. We couldn't stay away from the deep. We've got Eric Dauernnheim on Riptide, and we've also got Richard here on Dorinthea, the sole Dorinthea of the field.
Sneed himself, usually a Wizard sympathizer. Very interesting to see him on the Green Man.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see how he navigates this. I mean, Eric has been known to be one of the best Kano players, definitely in this room, in a sea of really, really good Kano players. I wonder what makes him convert to the Green Man.
Maybe some pre-Pro Tour psyops in the flesh and blood.
Yeah.
Not too sure.
Perhaps now is another good time to mention Battle Hardened San Diego, which is coming up just next month, August 24th and 25th. Tell the people what they can win, Marcus.
So we've got 2 PTIs on offer for the Battle Hardened, one for first place and one for the runner-up. We've also got another PTI because it's a ProQuest Plus for the AGE Open in August, the day after. So August 24th and 25th.
And don't forget, we've got 2K on the line for each of the days. 2K for the Battle Hardened and 2K for the AGE the next day. It's going to be a lot of fab fun down south.
Okay, we're doing a die roll here to ascertain turn order.
6 was looking pretty good on the die roll. Maybe it was an even odd. Pile shuffle's coming in hot.
Oh no, a point of contention. Pile shuffling.
Del Taco, friend of the show, says the deeper into summer we get, the hairier the casting team gets. Stay tuned next month. Being cast by Bigfoot and Yeti. Del Taco, you are so right. I'm growing the beard out at the moment. Maybe one day I'm going to be able to rival the beautiful man sitting next to me. But yeah, it's only going to get hairier. It's only going to get fuzzier.
I had actually planned to trim up the beard and be smarter along with my haircut, but I ran out of time because I was playing Armory last night.
Oh, and where were you playing said Armory?
Over a newer location in Cerritos, Crazy Nick's. Crazy with a K.
Crazy Nick's is the name of the LGS?
Yes, it is.
I got to check out Crazy Nick's. How was the scene there?
We've kind of started off with some of the Pitch It To Me podcast boys.
Oh, excellent.
So we've made the scene ourselves, and we've got an average of at least 6 people coming on Friday nights.
Yeah. And what a scene that is. As a reminder to the folks at home, the Pitch It To Me podcast team is made up by some of our top 8 contenders just last month. Namely, our winner, Talon Stradley, is one of the Pitch It To Me team members. Also Fuzzy Delp, who we saw on stream. And Clark, I can't remember his last name. I feel terrible. But just a lot of really fun and talented folks.
Clark Moore, I believe.
Clark Moore. Yes, you are absolutely right. Looks like we're kicking it off. We've got the fist bump in the second round of the AGE July Open. Looks like it's going to be led off by Richard Truong, who seems to be sporting a Decimator Axe Dory build. Could be a long one.
Yeah, looking at the lists here, he's set for Dawnblade in a main board, and because this is a longer matchup with Riptide, he's opted for Decimator.
Perhaps deciding that he's just going to opt out of allowing Eric to utilize those traps that are so critical to the Riptide game plan. Looks like Eric revving up for a 2-card block here, as Richard goes ahead and reviews this obscure Ranger equipment that he may have not seen before.
Yeah,
I always love watching people really carefully read Perch Grapplers when it's it's going to block 2. That's all that's going to happen here.
Hey, sometimes if you have 2 blues as Azalea, maybe you'll pop it.
There were some really amazing turns in the Lexi days that I could put together by popping Perch Grapplers. I actually quite miss those days. 2 cards is the block for Eric Dauernnheim. Incoming Arsenal from Richard Truong, and we are off to the races. Both players draw back up. Eric giving beautiful eyes to the camera and to his opponent.
Yeah, definitely not a poker face. So it's good that he's not playing that today.
Looks like we see a Codex of Frailty and pitch right away, likely because he doesn't like any of the targets in his arsenal. Also, he's got too many cards in his hand.
Widowmaker
Doesn't want
Blue.
to IP himself. Widowmaker Blue is actually a really interesting card because it's kind of like a you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't kind of card. Like, if you stick 2 cards in front of it and get rid of its buff, then you're overblocking by 3, essentially. So I actually really liked... I keep talking about the Lexi days, and I'm sorry about that, but that was one of my favorite inclusions in the later half.
I was going to say it was pretty important also in the limited format of Outsiders as well, because giving cards in limited, oh boy.
And there just wasn't enough equipment. Like, there was no battle-worn equipment, I don't think.
It was all like blade breaks on purpose.
And so Richard showing us what he's going to be doing for probably 90% of this game, pitching a blue, swinging a Decimator Great Axe, sending poor Eric back into the think tank.
Yeah, the thing that Eric has to now think over is, like, not only arrows are going to block poorly, is that his traps will also block poorly, because it's the first time you defend.
Indeed.
To Decimator, so you're really only going to get that 3 value from every trap, even if it triggers, which most of the time it won't against the axe.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eric showcasing the fact that he knows what that card says, blocking with an arrow first, and then hitting him with the Frailty Trap.
Yeah.
This just in from producer Justin. Looks like Richard presented 71 cards. Eric is presenting 60. Probably getting caught off guard a little bit by the Decimator Great Axe.
You'd expect the opposite sort of thing, or for both players to, like, board up, but Eric, no, choosing a clean 60.
Let's see if it works out for him. He's coming in with one of those high-efficiency attacks in Fiendal's Spring Tunic. You've got to expect that Richard Truong has some of those really clean D-reacts in the form of Fate Foreseen and Sink Below, though, to mitigate the value that Eric's going to gain by sending these 2-card 7s. Furthermore, Eric sends Collapsing Trap to the pitch zone. Probably not going to be as much of a factor in this game, but Richard probably should just notate the position of that card in Eric's deck, namely because if he utilizes Refraction Bolters wouldn't even trigger it because it happens after the hit, wouldn't it?
It's true, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So it's going to check in damage, so you've already passed beyond reactions.
We're seeing the game plan of the traditional game plan of Riptide kind of slipping away as Richard presents what is probably an unexpected switchboard plan.
Interesting. So he can pay into grains because Eric was like, no blocks. I would like to use my whole hand, please, sir.
And let's see what Riptide can do with a 5-card hand. We're starting off right with an E-Strike. That is just one of those hands that declunks some of these weirder Riptide hands. We also see a Barraging Brawnhide, which is a mainstay in my teammate Anthony Pham's Riptide list. I'm so excited to see that card.
We love the 2-card 8s.
Yes, we do. Perhaps Eric trying to just grind out the value from Richard's hands with hyper-efficient attacks.
I think this probably speaks to the reason why Eric didn't board up, because he knows that in presenting a 60 like this, he can cleanly use a whole hand if Richard is expecting to just, like, fold 3 cards and always swing axe every turn. He'll just constantly outvalue him turn cycle by turn cycle here.
And there we go, taking a pretty significant chunk of Richard's life total here with that Barraging Brawnhide. Eric also possibly going to have a hard time deploying another critical card in his list in Scar for a Scar. He's probably going to have to play that. I mean, Eric is also a really good, was a really good Icelander player when she was in the meta, and I think he's really used to this whole positing life totals against one another kind of game
you
plan.
basically play with a yo-yo when you do your life total, so that you can use every card in your hand. Going above, going below, being just right. Here we see a Frailty Trap covering up the rest of Decimator.
Unfortunately not going to trigger because the Decimator does not have go again. Yeah, Richard is just kind of chipping away at Eric's life total, saying you can't play all these really useful cards that you thought you could. However, Eric does have a really important card in the form of Dreadbore. Dreadbore is going to make it so a lot of these really clean number D-reacts that Richard wants to deploy are ineffectual.
Yep.
And here comes Intoxicating Shot. What do you think about that card?
I mean, this is actually a relevant card in this matchup because if Richard lets this connect in any way, shape, or form, it's actually going to turn on the traps for Eric for him in a matchup where, like, they're definitely not going to. on
Yeah.
average.
Absolutely. Kind of a weird situation where a blue can kind of force you to block with 2 cards.
Yeah, and it's a blue that's printed as a 4 cost, or 4 power, pardon me.
Because ordinarily that is kind of you're essentially giving your opponent a buff. But in this case, Eric would be able to get free damage and value off of those traps that are kind of sitting there useless against the Decimator Great Axe normally.
Okay, so now we see just the swing of the Decimator again, pardon me.
Another one?
You don't say. We're just trying to spice up what we see on screen here.
And here comes another block for 5 from Eric. 5 because Decimator will reduce one of those cards by half of its value, from 3 down to 2. We see producer Justin's fingers coming in here. Looks like we might have a fumble on the play, folks. Oh, we're getting player mics in place for some more high-octane action between the Axe and the Dreadbore. Eric goes ahead and activates Trench, pitches that upside-down card from his arsenal to the bottom of his deck, uses
Endless
it
Arrow.
on Dreadbore, incoming Endless Arrow.
Honestly, one of the biggest winners when you present Dreadbore. This annoying breakpoint becomes an even more annoying breakpoint.
Exactly, and Endless Arrow being so critical to these longer games because you don't have a weapon with damage consistent on board. Endless Arrow can kind of become like a Titan's Fist towards the end of these games that you just kind of throw every single
I was going to say
again.
it's Ranger's Anathos because sometimes it can go taller, but sure, Titan's
I like
Fist
that.
works too.
We can quibble about Guardian weapons all day.
Anathos is the original hammer.
Looks like we've got a Vigor token created on the side of Richard, and we're drawing back up.
I wonder if it has anything to do with a lower life total matters card that Eric is about to present.
Oh, what do you know? That thing we were talking
Here's
about
a
5
scar
minutes
for
ago.
a scar for 4. Go again.
Eric happy to see this card at a critical point when his life total dips just below Richard's. Scar for a scar gaining go again just because Eric has less life than Richard. Eric taking a second to swig Red Bull, hoping to power himself through what will be a very long game.
Oh my goodness.
We found another. Can you imagine if Richard had let that hit and then Eric would have just had to end his turn on this Scar for a Scar?
Where's the Aether Ice Vein?
Eric really happy to just get these cards out of his deck at a point where they can be used for offensive potential because they can certainly become really clunky like we saw in that last game with John
This is lovely. This is just everything you want from this kind of hand.
Numbers, right?
15 out of 4 cards.
Pretty amazing.
Excellent.
Eric really hoping he doesn't draw that last Scar for a Scar. Looks like we've avoided it. We've got some other really good cards here, but probably not for this hand because...
Yeah, Buzzsaw not too incredible.
And Buzzsaw can be something that's really amazing towards the end game because Richard is likely going to keep himself rich with sharpened steels and other really efficient ways to pump this Decimator Axe to finish Eric off. If he can hold on to that Buzzsaw trap, he can really strip some value off of that axe.
Yeah.
For now, it's just 4. It's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen Richard play this the Decimator side of this Dory build. I think I've only ever seen him when he's on Dawnblade, or I've only ever competed against him when he's on Dawnblade.
Yeah, so it's a common thing to pack in the sideboard when you play Dawnblade Dorinthea because you know you're in for a matchup that will grind out, so you're not going to go for a faster paced tempo plan with Dawnblade. You're going to grind it out. You're going to almost take them to time.
Oh my goodness.
Into most.
And this is so sad right here. Eric had already deployed his Spike Pit Trap, which is so good against attack reactions. However, he deployed it 1 second too soon because Richard then sends out the Singing Steel Blade, finds himself the Ironsong response, completely eliminating the text on Spike Pit Trap, which can be really critical.
Yep.
Especially when closing out these games.
Unfortunately, he does have another trap.
And he's going to get some really serious value off of it, won't he?
We just talked about how it wouldn't get him value this early on, but Richard wanted to push a bit more damage considering the hand.
Buzzsaw Trap says, when this defends an attack with power greater than its base, the attack can't gain power this turn, and it becomes its base. So back down to 4 is the Decimator Great Axe.
Yep.
The block is 5, and therefore none getting through.
He'll get that important ping of 1 from Riptide's hero ability as well.
And that means another Ironsong response out of Richard's deck. Here comes a powerful play from Eric. Premeditate, reload Riptide, means that he can send whatever the heck he wants from that arsenal, and it'll be pumped. And what the heck? C and C for 9. That is a heck of a play.
And here are 3 cards. I'll give you 9.
Unfortunately, Eric not finding any D-reacts in Richard's hand to kind of clunk up his blocks. But he'll take 3 cards.
I mean, he's packing surely 2 other copies of Command & Conquer, so he'll send it with other ones.
And here comes some bread and butter in the form of Decimator Great Axe. We still have a full equipment suite on both sides of the board. Richard likely going to hold on to those refraction bolters in the foot slot until he can really pressure those last cards out of Eric's hand towards the end of this game.
Yeah, it's one of those scenarios where both players are on decks that can go long and are prepared for it. So really just trading cards and life turtles rather than equipment, which they save for the crucial pivot.
Eric finding himself with a lot of cards in hand, but just sending a Barraging Brawnhide with a bit of an overpitch, likely just thinking that those traps are not going to be useful enough until maybe later in the game. Richard really seems to be keeping an eye on that pitch stack, though. He might know when they're about to come back around.
Yeah.
But here's Barraging Brawnhide coming in for 8, unless Richard blocks with 2 or more cards. Non-equipment cards, that is.
Regardless, it'll still deal 1 if he only gives 2/3 blocks.
And I think Eric is happy as long as he is ripping cards out of Richard's hand and also ticking that life total down.
I mean, it's a funny conversation to have when arguably the hero without a weapon is actually doing more deck damage in the long run by trading 1 card for 2 on the opponent, who has a whole weapon that they can swing for the entire duration of the game.
And this is the value proposition that Anthony Pham keeps trying to sell the team on, is that you just use high efficiency attacks, just like Bolander did back when she was in the meta, and eventually you eke out enough value to where those traps can get the last points of damage off your opponent's side of the board. For now, here comes Decimator Great Axe. I see an energy potion in the pitch for Richard. What do you think about that, Marcus?
It's mainly part of the blue base that you use in some versions of Dawnblade, where you value, you can fold a hand and you can put out a potion, or even if you have Go Again and your Dawnblade doesn't connect, you can play a potion, still use your action point, Arsenal Pass, and then bank those resources for like a route or like a Steelblade Supremacy, something tall to like really swing tempo because you're pulling resources into another turn.
Right, you are, and here comes equipment-only blocks from Eric Dauernnheim.
Interesting.
That's going to be a block for 3. Interesting that he doesn't save those for a potential on-hit or later in the game.
He surely has a good reason with this hand, then.
Perhaps the call is just that he wants to use the long draw half glove, perhaps to pump up a Murky Water or something like that.
Because you want maximum value after blocking with it and then activating it. Trench activation here too.
Have we seen any D-reacts from Richard, either pitched or played?
I'm not sure.
I kind of don't think we have, and I wonder if that's because Richard saw this whole Dreadbore game plan coming. I think Dreadbore has become the de facto bow for Riptide players.
They might honestly be clumped because we're still in first cycle.
Eric catching himself in the nick of time. Premeditate reloaded that E-Strike and is going to give it the +3. Looks like the mode chosen is going to be Go Again.
No reaction on my end.
And Richard showcasing a D-react that is not a D-react.
It's an instant.
Yes, indeed. And finding himself an agility token. Eric probably smelling blood in the water and hoping that he can finally draw a frailty or tar pit trap and get that into the mix now that Richard is forced to have Go Again on his
This is a very good arrow to field. Not only is it threatening a Ponder here, but it's also threatening to put a -1 on Richard's equipment.
Tell me why it's threatening a ponder. I thought that was only on the last attack.
No, it's for everything that comes from Arsenal on the chain for premeditate.
I tell you what, Marcus, premeditate is one heck of a card. Unfortunately, no ponder for Eric here, and also no -1 defense counter on any of Richard's equipment, except for the Grains of Blood spell, but that's only because he blocked with it.
But he took the whole hand and he took a piece of armor, so it's damage in a different way.
Richard probably feeling like the amount of hands that Eric has been able to make use of is pretty high. It's got to run out at some point, right? There's no way that Riptide can make use of a 4-card hand over and over and over again. Eric, trying to prove me wrong.
I mean, he's got plenty of avenues for recursion. He's got the quiver. He's got his codexes.
We haven't seen a single codex played as of yet, if I'm not mistaken. We saw one pitched very early, but that's definitely going to play into his... oh, I'm sorry. We did see... Oh, no. I'm thinking of the John Abanto game. I am not used to seeing two
Mixing your
Riptide games. But we're going to see much more of it today, folks, because we got 4 in the mix out of 32 players.
I can't promise for certain that we won't feature another prominent Riptide on coverage today, but...
And who is that prominent Riptide, Marcus?
I just played him when he had a fortunate buy in round 1, Talon Stradley.
Oh, you played him?
Yeah.
What were you playing?
I was playing Victor.
Oh, that's fun. Who took it?
Me.
Ah, excellent. Maybe you should have been playing today, huh?
I would be the single guardian in the room.
Here comes a courage token popping and another bread and butter decimator great axe coming at Eric Dauernnheim. He's hoping that he's holding on to an inertia trap, which I actually think I saw him draw up on the last turn. Yeah, here we go. We're finally activating some traps here and getting some value off of that hero text besides the free reload.
So that'll
Inertia.
be a ping to Richard.
And I'm sorry, did the agility token pop this turn? No, it popped last turn, right?
No, he had to use his whole hand to block and
Righto.
get used to the agility. He made a courage here from the Unity trigger with Chorus of Ironsong.
And we're seeing the use of refraction bolters kind of early. Did he get block value?
No, he didn't. He popped it with like the 1 block still there.
That's fascinating in a deck that really wants to take the game to the end.
But basically, Richard saw this hand and went, right, I can assure that I will swing twice with Great Axe, and Blade Flurry is a good companion to that.
I guess you just hit the gas pedal when you can.
Yeah.
Eric in the tank, thinking about a block on Decimator Great Axe, coming in for 6, which is impossible to block efficiently because of the text on Decimator Great Axe.
And this also means that because this is perfect resources with the hand, and there was no chance for Eric, because he already pitched away collapsing, for Richard to lose the last card and like lose value on Blade Flurry here, and he's played around the inertia as well.
Here comes a block for 2, unfortunately. Taking 4 is Eric Dauernnheim. And coming back to his turn. Blocking with a battering bolt, which can be a really, really good card combined with Dreadbore, especially if you know that your opponent is running D-Reacts. But again, we just haven't seen that many out of Richard. I wonder if they're even in the deck.
Okay, oh, pitching 2 reds. Okay.
That is an unfortunate pitch, not being very resource efficient, and Eric having a laugh about it.
It was probably awkward because it's just 4 reds. Like, it's what you got to do sometimes.
And even though Richard doesn't even have an arsenal, he says, my deck is built to block. Please let me give you these 2 cards. I do not care. Sharpened Steel coming in conjunction with the Bread and Butter Decimator Great Axe.
2 card 7.
Not so, well, 3, yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I'm so used to my weapons not having attack value. Eric in the tank once again, hopefully drawing up a juicy trap. He's keeping it close to the chest. We have no traps in that hand.
Remorseless, double remorseless.
We do have a tar pit trap, but that's not going to activate here because this attack does not have go again. 7 is the ask on board for Richard Truong in this round 2 of the July AGE Open Series.
Yeah. He's going to gain that life off Fighting Spirit because he's currently lower. But Richard could always pick the Fighting Spirit to defend for just 1.
Does that...
It doesn't change the numbers,
but... but it flies in the face of your opponent, I guess, huh?
Because usually that sort of like lowering a block value to 1 is like the realm of an assassin with Spider's Bite.
I guess it just feels bad, huh?
Yeah.
An activation of Dreadbore and a Remorseless for 6. is coming in. This, in conjunction with Dreadbore, says no D reacts to this chain link whatsoever. Don't even think about it.
Richard consulting the hand he's dealt. Let's take a little bit of a look here. We've got Supremacy.
Steelblade Supremacy, that's literally just a block 3 for this deck, I would imagine,
In a
right?
way, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he doesn't want that for Arsenal.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Richard being very careful about what he keeps in Arsenal. Honestly, Eric has sent 2 or I think it's only 2 CNCs so far, but both of which have had no Arsenal to threaten on Richard's side of the board.
I mean, there's a decision to be made when you play around Codex by taking an Arsenal when you can get it, but there's also the other consideration that it allows him to tuck 2 cards because he underpitched here with a yellow and then pitched a blue.
Have we seen any attacks go to Richard's graveyard? I kind of wonder if he's even susceptible to Codex as it is.
I'm not even sure he runs a single attack action.
Yeah, we're looking over the list now for those of you at home. We're not seeing a single attack action in Richard's deck. So he's not threatened by Codex whatsoever.
No.
Except for, of course, the Frailty token and the Ponder
so
token on the side of
you can
Eric.
disregard what I just said. He doesn't need to worry about Codex.
Which is interesting, because usually these Dory builds will at least pack like CNCs, or now that we're in the land of Mystic Heroes.
Speaking of, Eric is feeling a CNC. Yeah, because it's just an efficient 2-card play.
Yeah. Especially when you expect the D reacts. We should look at his list and see if they're even... I don't even see Sync Belows or Fate for Scenes. We have one... Oh, I'm sorry. They're there.
Syncs here. There's no Fates.
There is one red
on
unmovable as well. That is really fascinating. I wonder if he sided them out here. Could be a really heads-up. It almost seems like Richard came expecting this 4 Riptide meta.
No, honestly, he's fielded the entire 71 because he's got only 9 equipment. The rest is the main board.
Also expecting some new, because we see a blue snag.
Yeah, there's the snag there.
I'm sorry, just a snag. There's no yellow or red snag. That's not a thing.
Just a snag disables just a nick.
Having a bit of fun in the booth here with my friend Marcus Brown. The block is going to be 4 here because Fiendal's Fighting Spirit will be reduced to 1 by the Great Axe and then covered up by the Inertia Trap out of Eric Dauernnheim. No activation on the trap and no ping for 1 from Riptide. Life total's getting a little disparate here.
Yeah. Ooh.
But
the last copy of Scar for a Scar.
Enough to turn on that Scar for a Scar, and Eric's probably happy to see that at the very least. He is, however, getting very serious. No more sly smiles from Mr. Sneed anymore. We finally found a sink below, Marcus.
But what will he sink, if anything? No sink, he says.
I think Richard's just happy to see block 3 on every single one of his cards. He could care less otherwise.
Ooh. There's a very nice Cheerios play here, everyone.
It is curious that Eric didn't start the turn with the premeditate, just so that you have 2 options for getting Ponder tokens, but he's probably just valuing the on-hit on Searing Shot.
Actually, if we review the turn that just happened, he arguably drew out the perfect block of Sink Below on the Scar for a Scar.
Yep.
And Richard did not fish for like another copy of Sink by sinking. So that Searing Shot actually came in for 7 when Richard did not have like a reaction or something to perfectly block 7.
Critically, he couldn't anyway because of Dreadbore. So probably showcasing his knowledge of the matchup.
True, yeah.
Activation of Dreadbore into Murky Water. Cheeky 2-card 7.
This is a lovely play, honestly.
Indeed. The only downside for Mr. Dauernnheim is that the majority of the traps in that graveyard just haven't been triggering on what Richard is throwing his way. However, Richard is holding on to a Sharpened Steel, so maybe Richard will allow Eric to set up some sort of trap interaction.
I mean, I think possibly recurring, because Eric already spent Buzzsaw on that turn where Richard went a little tall. Or even Pitfall, because it cares about reactions.
Right, or Spike Pit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that could potentially close out a game if he can finally get Richard's life totals down to a reasonable amount. So no on hit there. Richard totally fine giving up an extra card here. I guess since he presented 71, he essentially has 11 times where he can reduce his card value by 1 per turn cycle. I don't think we've seen that happen 11 times yet.
I mean, this is the realm of Charles Dunn right here.
Yes, indeed.
Curiously missing from AGE this time around.
Well, if we'll have to take a look at his position in the leaderboard next time, but I think he's pretty darn locked for the Players' Championship.
I think he feels fairly safe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 78 points, if I'm not mistaken.
78. He's exactly neck and neck with Chris.
But Chris ekes out just by a couple match wins.
From tiebreakers, yeah, exactly.
So here comes the activation of the long draw half glove, something that Marcus and I predicted many turns ago when we saw it blocked with. Looks like we found our way to second cycle. This collapsing trap was pitched very early in the game.
Activate Riptide. Activate Trench, pardon me, as well. And Codex.
Finally deploying the second of 3 Codex of I'm sorry.
So
this
I
is the
believe
first.
Eric is going to be at 3 resources because he put Trench on the stack.
Correct.
So that he could clear Arsenal to Codex.
Could very well be a barraging Dauernnheim, but now that he's seen 1 sink below, maybe he's thinking that it's better to choose an arrow. Let's have a listen in. Eric kind of discussing.
I'm just going to do this. All right.
I wonder if he takes a fighting spirit.
Sure looks like that's what he's thinking about.
He's got one on the table right there.
Finding those tokens first.
Those fighting spirits.
I think it means less to honestly take an arrow because Richard has an arsenal here.
Third base.
So if you perceive that as a reaction.
Come in with Fiendless Fighting Spirit for 7. I will gain 1 health.
Yes, you will, Eric.
All right. Eats a little bit of chicken. Sends a 2-card 7. Spoils of War. Devoted to the block. Oh, Eric doesn't feel good about. Oh, he's remembering that he had 3 resources floating.
Sink, yeah.
I wonder. Okay, and we found the second sink below. Oh, poor Eric. Oh, I forgot about it too. He activated the long draw half glove.
Okay.
Oh no! So he really needed to find an arrow there. That's why, folks, you leave effects like that on the combat chain just so you don't forget.
Just put the piece of equipment up so you can remember.
Oh, you hate to see it, Eric. I'm so sorry. Oh, that is so painful. So painful that he just decided he's no longer going to use his ponder token and put that in the bin as well. In the tilt tank is Eric Dauernnheim. Eric, don't take it too personally. You're such a good player. Don't you give up on us. It just goes to show you, folks, that even the best of the best can make mistakes. And just because you do one time does not mean that you were a bad player.
Honestly, that play is kind of nuanced because people don't think like, oh, I can order my triggers this way and be up a resource.
Well, I think he's just upset at himself for not choosing an arrow, so it didn't get buffed by the half club. Warmongers is an interesting choice here. I guess it just means that
Richard has to play at reaction speed if he wants to buff Decimator.
Which we do see an overpower, so it very well could happen. Also, is that a Singing Steel Blade? Another one?
I think
on the left side? Maybe not.
I think it's a chorus of Ironsong.
No, it's a Take It on the Chin. Take It on the Chin.
Take It on the Chin, Ironsong Determination, Sharpen Steel.
So it's quite possible that we just send... Oh, I don't know if he has the pitch to send Decimator.
He doesn't have the resources to actually overpower because it's his only blue in hand.
So Eric basically saying that Warmongers says that you can only send 4 at me.
Yeah.
It's kind of awkward, though, because I honestly think playing the Warmongers hurts Riptide more than Dorinthea in this case.
True.
I'm sorry, Decimator for 5 because we have a Courage token on his side of the board.
He does get the opportunity to pitch red, red, yellow and get around it so that he can filter those cards away.
Richard showcasing just how well you can pilot a deck like this. It takes a lot of willingness to just expend cards out of your deck for no value.
problem. All right.
But the value in turn is really just having them still in the deck.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's good. I understand. Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. All right, let's get going then.
I agree, Eric. Let's get going. You've got this, my friend.
I will move to reactions.
Moving to reactions, likely going to throw a Frailty and Tar Pit Trap in front of this. Unfortunately, not triggering once again. Getting no value off of Riptide's hero ability or off of the trap text.
So Richard will take the opportunity because he hits with a weapon to pay for grains and take a resource into next turn.
And Richard being so diligent about those grains triggers, even though in this form of the deck it kind of almost, I don't think we've seen it matter a single time.
This is the fab equivalent to playing Pong. Yeah, we know your stance on anything that isn't an aggro mirror, Anthony, so
It's important to mention who's in chat. That's Del Taco, our friendly neighborhood ninja sympathizer. If he's not throwing red attacks that cost 0, he is not happy. So this is a blasphemous game of flesh and blood as far as he's concerned. Love you, Del Taco. Love that you're here with us. Here comes another Tar Pit Trap. Unfortunately, only blocking for 2 and getting no value beyond that.
And paying into grains, taking it into next turn. Reminds me of tectonic plating.
Oh, gosh. You're always able to bring it back to the Guardian.
Absolutely. No matter where I go, every hero can resemble Guardian.
The play patterns in this game have very much resembled Guardian play.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that that's where your head's at, honestly. Here comes Battering Bolt for 7, buffed up by the Dreadbore. No D-reacts from hand here, but unfortunately we know that Richard is not really sporting any. Richard says, here's one of those 11 times.
I was going to say that Battering Bolt cares about any sort of like card types outside of actions. So even if you have attack reactions.
Right you are.
So hence why he folded 3 cards.
But also Richard says, I have 11 more cards than you, and also my cards are getting more value in the pitch zone than yours are, so here's 3.
These poor Tar Pit Traps.
I know.
All blocked 2.
So we saw showcased last game some moments where those Riptide traps can be absolutely backbreaking against the opponent. In this, we've seen the other side of Riptide where these traps can be just absolute dead cards in your deck. Murky Water coming in for 7, buffed up by the Dreadbore. Able to be played because we activated Trench at the beginning of the turn, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because he's pitched a Codex, so that's how we got to 3 resources.
What trap do you think he wants to find and regurgitate, as it were, with Murky Water?
I think Buzzsaw. Buzzsaw is the safest bet.
And unfortunately, Richard is his one-of copy of Unmovable.
You can't do that with Dreadbore.
No siree, Bob.
Sworn enemy of Oldhim.
Eric finally finding a moment where he can get some value off of this bow. Likely a little bit too late and too many dollars short. Richard says, well, maybe I'll just give you the other 3 cards.
Here's some armor for it, yeah. I'm going to have to pitch away that Unmovable.
Wow, so
I'll
Richard
find a way
is
to clear
now
Arsenal,
only
yeah.
at an effective 28 life.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, he will clear Arsenal well. And send 7 because of Sharpened Steel. And pocket that red Unmovable.
And Eric definitely wishing he had been able to...
I have a trap here. Okay,
yeah.
here we go. This is nice. This is nice. So he won't get to pocket that Unmovable because there'll be inertia. So we'll go to the bottom of the library first before pitch deck.
And another ping over to Richard. This is probably like our 2 out of 7 traps played this game that have actually activated.
I think it's been closer to 3 or 4.
All right, fair enough. The life totals tell the story, folks.
Actually, maybe not the whole story, I would say, Bryce. I'm going to take a peek and pardon me.
Tell me what you're going to do.
We're going to do Deck Watch and look at Eric's library.
It's looking a little low, Marcus. The good news is there's a lot of cards in his graveyard, so that's cool. A lot of cards in Richard's as well. Let's see that hand cam on his side. It's a little harder to see on Richard's side of the board, but I think he's definitely feeling a little healthier card-wise than Eric.
Unfortunately, Eric is down to like a handful of hands, basically.
And this is the situation where Decimator Axe becomes really backbreaking because you'd love to just throw one card out of your hand and donate the rest to offense, but this makes it so your cards only block for 2. So the clock on Eric's life total is rapidly coming to a close. Let's see what he can do with this 4-card hand. 3 in hand, 1 in arsenal. It's going to be an intoxicating shot, which ostensibly doesn't have go again.
No, it does not.
Critically, we still are sitting on our Quiver of Abyssal Depths. Maybe that's what we're going to do with the rest of this hand. Maybe not.
Or just do it on another turn with a blue.
I have to imagine he had a redundant blue in that hand. I wonder if he forgot that he could do it at instant speed or something.
Yep.
And Richard says, I'm going to swing the axe. Ping back to you, Eric.
Like so. Blocking 4.
Reactions.
Sure.
Ooh.
Overpower +4.
Devastation.
I don't know why I'm doing this. Just to keep alive, I guess. Okay.
Oh, Eric.
It's the truest statement of this game so far.
My heart bleeds for Eric. I think that misplay with the half glove has been a little backbreaking to his spirit. But if anybody can claw back into this tournament and make it to top 8 with this hero, I know it's Eric Dauernnheim.
Honestly, the win in round 1 has already set him up pretty well, so
Yes.
it's not impossible to like recover. He doesn't have to truly submarine.
Yeah, only
As we know.
32 players here at the AGE Open Series in July. So likely only thinking about like 5 or 6 rounds here. So
Yeah.
the
The cut is going to be the cut is going to be a little more forgiving.
Richard has found himself another blue pitch card. That same
Oh,
snag,
no.
which I would have to imagine is a one of. No,
No, he's got
two
two.
snags. That's why it feels like we've seen it a million times. It's interesting, though, that Richard is not sporting a Heart of Fiendal, but he is sporting an energy potion. I find that very interesting, especially if he has this Decimator Great Axe sideboard plan.
I think it's in the fact that it is a sideboard plan and not the main core.
All right. Codex.
Little tokens for Codex. Here comes 4. Richard's still sitting with pieces of equipment that could cover this up nicely, but he says, here's more cards. I have more than you, so
It's not a
I'm going to
worry.
use
No.
them.
All right. You got it. Good game.
Okay, and that's all she wrote.
Winning over to the player on our left once again. So far, the left side of this feature match undefeated.
Overpowered, some would say.
Indeed so. Richard showcasing the power of the Decimator Great Axe Dory build, especially into a list that might not have been sideboarded prepared for it. Unfortunate misplays on the side of Eric Dauernnheim. However, based on where the life total's at, I think we were headed this way regardless. That is just when somebody presents 71 cards against you as Riptide and you know you don't have that much power in your deck overall, you can know how it's going to go.
I think to Eric's credit, considering that he only presented like a clean 60, I was looking at Richard's library and he only had about maybe 8 cards left. So he got pretty close in terms of like fatigue. So he went the distance, just, like we said, missing out on that crucial play with the half glove.
And at least 3 of those remaining cards in Richard's deck were non-blocks.
Yeah.
So it was possible to get there, but when your non-blocks are also swinging for 4 at hyper efficient value, it's hard to get there, man.
Yeah. When it comes to the last few crucial turns of like fatigue and running out of a library, you feel the fact that you don't have a weapon.
Yep. Absolutely. As a Ranger player myself, I've been in that situation many times. And as a Guardian player, you've been across from me in those situations.
What can I say? I love Oldhim. I love Bravo.
Oh, it hurts my soul. Anyway, we will be back with our round 3 pairings shortly after this. Don't go anywhere. We've got more Flesh and Blood coming up.